Welcome back to part 3 of my tutorial on the Behringer X32. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into the routing on the console. Let's get to it.
So the first thing we need to talk about when discussing routing is your I/O. So I'm sitting side stage right now where I have a Behringer S32 digital snake, in the industry also commonly referred to as a stage box. As the name would tell you, it has 32 inputs and it has 16 outputs. I'm actually using output 1 and 2 to feed my mains, and then 13 through 16 come up here to my Aviom in-ear system, and then that feeds the musician's personal mixers. So every musician has one of these, and they do their own in-ear mixes. But the digital snake replaces those giant analog snakes that weighed like 200 pounds and you'd have to lug all around. This stage box connects to the front of house system with a single network cable. So way better than the old analog snakes. This has a couple inputs and outputs on the back, but the ones we need to worry about today are AES 50, A, and B, because that's how it connects to front of house, through AES A or B. And it has A and B because you can actually connect two stage boxes. You can connect them directly to front of house, or you can put them in series. So you can have another stage box on stage left connect directly to this one, and then this one connect to your front of house system. So let's go ahead and look at the I/O on the back of the console. This is an X32 standard, so if you have a compact or producer, the back's going to look a little different, but don't worry, once you get into the routing menu, everything looks pretty much the same. So of course we have our 32 inputs over here. Right below that you have auxiliary inputs and outputs. Over here in the middle, again, these are the important ones. That's AES 50, A, and B. Those are your network connections that let you plug into your stage box. And since I have it plugged into A here, that's what I have it plugged into on the back of my stage box. There's a couple connections here we're not going to worry about. Here you have your 16 outputs. Right below that is expansion card. So it ships with the XUSB card, which lets you plug in a computer if you're going to do multi-tracking. We've actually replaced that with the X Dante card, which I could talk a little bit more about later. And then finally up here you have control room outputs in case your console is in a control room or hooked up to some monitors. Everything on the back of the console I just showed you is going to be referred to as local in or local out. It's important that you know all of the I/O because as we go through the routing menu, it's going to refer to it over and over. And again, this is the X32, but if you're using a compact or a producer, all the routing menus pretty much look the same. I may even bring up an overlay of the app just because it has a lot of words on it and it'll be a lot easier to read with the iPad app up for you to follow along. So let's go ahead and hit the routing button. All right, so you'll see first thing, if you're using a stage box, it will appear up here in A or B, whatever you have it connected to. And that will confirm with you that the console is seeing the stage box. So you want to make sure that that's there. And then you're patching things into your input here on this first tab in blocks of 8. Now, you can't do 1 here and 2 here, 3 there. You can only do blocks of 8. That's one of the limitations of the X32. But still, considering the price, not a bad sacrifice. So, because my stage box is in AES A and it's side stage, all of my instruments are connected to it. I don't have anything plugged into my inputs on the local inputs. All of my inputs are going to be from AES A. So block 1 is 1 through 8, 9 through 16, on and on through 32. I'm getting all of my sources from up there. Now the last column here is going to be for my auxiliary inputs. So I actually have mine on card 1 and 2 because we have the Dante card back there, which is audio over IP language. And so it puts all of our audio onto our network, which then goes back to our control room. They do a stream mix there, and then they put the stream mix back on the network. I pick it up here on card 1 and 2. That brings it back into the console. Now, because I only have card 1 and 2 selected, auxiliary 3, 4, 5, and 6 are still the local I/O on the back, even though I don't have anything selected for them. But you can select all kinds of inputs here in this menu. The next menu is AES-A. I know we keep saying this over and over, but again, that is the stage box, and that's going to determine what exactly is going to the stage box for the outputs. Now, mine only has 16 outputs, so I'm only using the first two columns and putting output 1 through 8 up there, and then 9 through 16. If you had a stage box with more outputs, then you could do more blocks of 8. Now you may be saying, okay, I have output 1 through 8 going to AES-A, but what does output 1 through 8 mean? Well, don't worry, there's another tab coming up soon that says outs, where you can assign every output one at a time to what they are. So we'll get there soon. Right next to that is AES-B, but we don't have anything plugged into that. The next tab is card. And again, I replaced my XUSB card with the XDante card. But if you haven't replaced that, it ships with that XUSB card. You can use that to plug it into a computer and actually multi-track. So you can record 32 individual channels onto a computer over a USB cable. We did that for a long time before we upgraded to Dante. So super powerful. You could use this entire thing as an interface. But again here, you're assigning sources and blocks of 8. And since everything is plugged into my stage box, I'm just going 1 through 8. 9 through 16, all the way through 32. That's making sure that all those instruments plugged into my stage box are going to the expansion card. If you have the USB, it would be going out a USB into a computer. Because I have a Dante card, it goes out onto my network. Dante is audio over IP protocol, so it goes out onto the network. That just chooses the sources that go to your card. Up next, we have XLR. This is all the local XLR outputs. Now, I don't have anything plugged in there, so it's not a big deal to me, but maybe you will. Here, it's in blocks of 4. So there's 16 XLR outputs here. So again, I just have it 1 to 1, right? So it's 1 through 4, 5 through 8, etc. on my 16 XLR outputs. Something useful over here, the last column is actually a bit of a cheat sheet that tells you exactly what all of your outputs are assigned to. So you can scroll through that and see exactly what you have assigned to each output as you assign those to your analog XLR outputs. Now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of the routing, and that's the out tab, or the outputs. So we have 16 to work with, and you can assign them all one at a time. Now remember, I said I have outputs 1 through 16 going up to my stage box, and 1 and 2 are my mains. So if I select 1 up here, you'll see in the category, I have highlighted main, left, right, center, and then main left is selected in the next column. If I go down to out 2, again, main, left, right, center is highlighted, and main right there is highlighted for output 2. So that's assigning what those outputs are, so that when I tell them to go to a specific destination, you know what's coming out. All right, so here's where it gets fun though. Output 3, like I said in the beginning, I have 3 through 16 going into the in-ear monitor system. Okay, so 3 is actually going to be the drums. Well, how do we get all of our drums onto one channel on their in-ears? Well, for that, we send a mix bus. So you can see on output 3, I have mix bus selected, and then I have mix bus 3. So I have mix bus 3 designated as my bus for my drums. I do a quick drum mix into that mix bus, and I'm sending it here out of output 3 into their ears so they can turn it up and down as much as they want in output 3. If they want something turned up or down specifically, like, hey, I want more snare or more kick, then I do that here on the mix bus section. Going down to output 4, that takes us to a new category called direct out. That's really important because, again, each musician controls their own in-ear monitor mix. And so I don't have to mix much other than the drum mix bus up here. Each other individual instrument goes to an individual channel in their ears. So for example, on output 4, on direct out, I have direct out 9. Now that's my bass guitar. But when you bring up direct out 9, it brings up another column, and that's where you tap into that signal. Because when you're getting a direct out, you take it from that channel, channel 9, but you can take it from all kinds of different places. So you can take it directly after the preamp. You can take it after the preamp, low cut, and mute. You can take it before the EQ, after the EQ. You can take it from all of these different places. Now, what I like to do is take it directly after the low cut without the mute. You'll see there's a low cut plus M. The M stands for mute. So I take it right after the input plus the low cut. That way, I'm not affecting anything that they hear in their ears. If I mess with the EQ or if I mess with compression, it only affects the front of house. It does not affect their ears. So for most cases, when they're using in-ears, I'm using direct outs for almost everything. With a few exceptions, I'm using a mixed bus. If you're using stage monitors instead of in-ear monitors, you may actually be using a mixed bus, just like I did on output 3. So in that case, output 1 and 2 probably still going to be your main outputs, or maybe you make them 15 and 16, but let's just say you make it 1 and 2. Then we'll go up here to output 3, and then it'll be on mixed bus, and then you'll choose which mixed bus you want. Maybe it's mixed bus 1 for you for monitor 1, and then you'll assign that, and then whatever you send into mixed bus 1 on your mixed bus section, that will come out of your monitors there that you have plugged into output 3. So the other output categories you have are matrix, which you can think of those as additional outputs. I'll probably go over those in the next tutorial. And then you have the monitor output. If you remember when I was showing you the back of the console, there's those XLR outputs labeled monitor. That's if this is in a control room and you want to actually have audio monitors. The next tab is auxiliary outputs, and that's going to look identical to the output tab. You have the same categories. It functions in the exact same way, but it works if you want to have some physical outputs here that have some unique properties. So like I said, I'm bringing in the stream mix over Dante into the console. I'm adding in a few other audio sources for the final stream audio, and then I actually take it out of auxiliary 1 and 2 into our stream setup. So again, for that, on auxiliary 1, I'm going to have it on on the mix bus. And if you remember from the last tutorial, my mix bus 7 and 8 are my stream audio left-right. So output 1, mix bus, and then I'm going to scroll down to 7 over here. And then on audio or auxiliary output 2, I'm going to go to mix bus and then put it on mix bus 8. That way my stream audio mix bus 7 and 8 are coming out of auxiliary 1 and 2 and plugged into the stream setup. The next tab is the P16 tab. So that would be the proprietary Behringer personal mixers. I showed you we use the Avioms for the in-ear monitors, but Behringer makes their own. So you can connect it to this entire Behringer infrastructure, and then you can route exactly what you want to those channels on the personal mixers with the P16 tab. It operates just like the output tab. And then finally, we have a user tab. I'm not going to go over that today. I might go over it in a future tutorial. You guys let me know if you want that. Also, I might even go over a Dante setup in a future tutorial and show you how we do a control room for an actual stream mix.
As always, if you have any questions, leave them down below. I'll try to get back to as many of them as I can. And also, if you have any ideas about other videos you'd like me to do for the X32, leave those down below as well. And we'll see you next time. Welcome back to part 3 of my tutorial on Behringer.